Albany, the epicenter for civil change in South Georgia,
where Alice Coachman rose from adversity and made it to the world stage.
And where Ray Charles was born and continued to have Georgia on his mind.
But the momentum couldn't help but spread across South Georgia.
To Thomasville, where black people were offered shelter after sundown.
To Cuthbert,
the exact courtroom that Lena Baker was tried for murder,
but also where the community worked to set her story straight.
Into Calhoun County, Georgia, where families affected by the deep, dark secrets of the past are still waiting for the truth about their loved ones to be brought to light.
In this half-hour special, we're celebrating Black history across South Georgia. Together, we honor the past and shape the future.
Well, post-Civil War America was a place of historic highs and lows. Black people faced unique barriers like sundown towns across the nation, which legally barred blacks from remaining in town after sunset.
But as WALB News 10's Quinlan Parker tells us, the Green Book became a valuable tool for black people as they traveled. Homes and hotels, even in South Georgia, took a risk to do what was right.
This is a copy of the 1954 edition of what is now referred to as the Green Book. It was first published by New York postal worker Victor Hugo. Not only did it serve as a venue for safety for African-American travelers, but a social protest against what was going on during a time known as Jim Crow.
If travelers came to this area, they knew what addresses to go to in order to be able to have boarding. In 1946, one of the mottos that they added to the front cover of the Green Book was, "Take your Green Book with you, you might need it."
If African Americans were caught in a sundown town, one could lose their life, be beaten, or even arrested and taken to jail and have to pay a fine.
And if that person was not able to pay a fine, then it led to them being sent to a work camp, where that fine never decreased, it just added up. So it depended on a particular time who caught you out at sunset.
There were 4 greenhouses listed as tourist homes in Albany, 2 on Mercer Avenue, 1 on Whitney, formerly known as South Street, and 1 on Jackson Street. The Green Book not only did it offer lodging, food, and gas locations, but what more did it offer?
The Green Book also offered, as the Jim Crow era expanded, as the civil rights movement became more involved, it also provided information about safe driving rules. It provided information about your rights as a citizen, as a Negro citizen.
From 1936 up until the mid-60s, new copies were published for black motorists to use and depend upon. After Victor passed away in 1960, his wife, Alma, and 5 other women became the driving force behind this guide and published the Green Book up until the last 2 editions. Alma has even been referred to as the mother of the Green Book.
This is the 1954 edition. It had gone down to just 3.
All 4 of the homes in Albany deemed as safe havens have been demolished, and there are very few greenhouses that are left standing. For years, there has been an ongoing campaign to maintain the Imperial Hotel in Thomasville. It's still standing, and they're fighting for it.
When I looked in the Green Book, I had never even heard of the Green Book. I looked in there was the Imperial Hotel in the Green Book. So if I would have told them, no, we didn't want that hotel, I'd have been a sick man to this day.
So it's important that we teach that the doors that were open for you, they were open, but they still kind of had a barricade. So for you to get over, and in order to make this world what it is now, it took people in place dealing with it so that it would make it better.
Speaking of barricades, trailblazers like Alice Coachman had to jump over hurdles to become successful, literally. Alice Marie Coachman was born in 1923 in Albany. Growing up, she was physically active, but at that time it wasn't socially acceptable for women to be athletes. In 1938, she joined the track team at Madison High School in Albany and would go on to win 10 straight national championships in the high jump. By 1948, Coachman made history in London, becoming the first black female to win gold at the Olympics. However, that did not come without adversity.
The king gave me my medal. When I got back to Georgia, the mayor didn't shake my hand.
She was sick the day that she won the gold medal. but she still was determined that she was going to give it her best.
It was Coachman's strength that inspired Monroe track runner Mariana Wright to overcome hurdles in her athletic journey.
Right before the state championships, I got really, really sick, and some people around me were kind of discouraging me, but thinking about Alice Coachman and everything that she faced and all the adversity and everything she went through, it made me realize that I can do it too, no matter what I go through.
Wright persevered and took home the gold in the state championship that year. She says she hopes to continue to walk in Alice Coachman's footsteps and one day bring back another Olympic gold medal to Albany.
Well, the Albany accolades do not stop there. Another local legend would go on to win prestigious awards and gain global acclaim for songs like Yesterday, Crying Time, and our state song, Georgia on My Mind. Although Ray Charles only lived in Albany for the first 3 months of his life, the icon never forgot his hometown roots. One Albany native says performing for Ray Charles when he was 8 years old was the catalyst to his lifelong passion for music.
A song of you comes out straight and clear like moonlight through the pines. When Representative White and my former piano teacher, Dr. Bacon, asked me would I be interested in performing for Ray Charles that evening, I was so happy about it. After the show, I sat in his lap, and it was recorded by Jet Magazine and everything, and he, just implored me to continue in music. He thought I was, great at that time and that the skies were the limit for me.
Inspiring future musicians would not be the only way Ray Charles would impact the city of Albany. Since 2001, Ray Charles and his foundation has donated over $3 million to Albany State University and millions more to the hearing impaired community. What a legacy.
People in Cuthbert are working to restore the childhood home of jazz legend Fletcher Henderson. Even though it was designated as an historical site in 1982, the home sat in disrepair until the current owners decided to transform it into a museum. Fletcher Henderson was born in Cuthbert in 1897. He would go on to become a well-known accompanist for most of the famous singers of the 1920s. Cuthbert residents say Fletcher and his family made incredible impacts on the music world and local education, which is why they're trying to preserve that history for future generations. Right now, the owners of the Henderson home are in the process of getting Fletcher Henderson's artifacts from Tulane University in New Orleans to add to the home. There's no set date for when it will open.
Well, a pardoning decades in the making. The story of Lena Baker, the only woman put to death by electric chair in the state of Georgia, is still being set straight in the small town of Cuthbert. WALB News 10's Lena Allen shares how the Lena Baker story is still tipping the scales of justice today.
It's been over 7 decades since the shocking story of Lena Baker happened right here in the small town of Cuthbert.
It was sort of one of the best kept secrets in Cuthbert.
A secret Leila Phillips, author of the Lena Baker story, was itching to share with the world. In 1941, Lena Baker worked for a white man by the name of Ernest Knight. The job turned into a prison for her, as Knight would often sexually assault her and hold her against her will. But on April 30th, 1944, Knight was shot in the head after he and Lena tussled over a pistol while Lena was trying to escape. Lena immediately told the coroner what happened and was charged with murder, not knowing that her fate was already sealed.
This was the exact courtroom that Lena Baker was tried for murder. That trial only taking 4 hours with a half-an-hour jury deliberation that led to her guilty verdict. And then, just steps away from the courthouse, Lena was locked up in jail.
Less than a year later, she was transported to a Georgia prison where she was electrocuted.
When asked if she had a last statement at her execution, Lena replied, "What I done, I did in self-defense. or I would have been killed myself. Where I was, I could not overcome it. God has forgiven me.
She was shocked several times for 6 minutes until she died. But to this day,
Lena's name is still echoed throughout the streets of Cuthbert.
It's history here, and it'll always be history here.
60 years after Lena's death, she was posthumously pardoned. Randolph County Sheriff Eddie Fairbanks says Lena's story has continued to tip the scales of justice.
Now we fight each and every day in Cuthbert and anywhere else in the state of Georgia that everyone receive a fair trial.
Her story resonating with people not just in her hometown, but also nationwide.
What of course drew me to the story is just, once again, her name, Lena, just like mine, and the meaning behind it, shining a light, a ray. Would you argue over 70 years later, her story still rings true?
She certainly, I think, enlightened the court system about the ills of society that we had at one time, and perhaps we still have somewhat today.
Lena Allen, WALB, your hometown news source.
I'm glad to be a part of the history. I'm glad to be part of the community.
From tipping the scales of justice to protecting and serving, we'll meet the first Black police chief of Homerville on the other side of the break. Well, before real change can start, someone has to challenge the status quo.
WALB News 10's Britney Blake has the story of one police chief who recently became the first Black police chief in his community and is now using that opportunity to instill trust in those he serves.
Keith Jackson was inspired by his father to pursue a career in law enforcement. Cleveland Jackson was an officer in the 70s. His father told him he was only allowed to arrest people of color, but his determination inspired Jackson.
I think that I looked at the determination and everything that he was doing, so that trickled over to me. Growing up and looking at all of this, and I'm saying that, you know, one day that I'll be a chief.
That is our foundation of our profession. Our profession was founded off of the slave patrols. So let's get real with this. Okay, let's get real with this. This is what we started out as. It does not have to be what we are today.
In September, Jackson was sworn in as the first Black police chief in Homerville history, with the goal of changing his department's reputation through leadership and community service.
And I'm honored that I got appointed in this great place of Homerville. Homerville is one of the hidden jewels in Georgia. So I'm glad to be a part of the history. I'm glad to be part of the community.
Now Jackson steps out of the office each day to connect with the people that he and the department serve, while focusing on activities that support the development and growth of young men and women.
He's an outstanding citizen. He's an outstanding chief. And I'm pretty sure you can ask Homerville, they're going to say the same thing I'm saying right now.
This Black History Month, we celebrate Chief Keith Jackson as a change maker in law enforcement. Britney Blake, WALB, your hometown news source.
This month, Valdosta State University is celebrating the first students who integrated the institution.
This fall, the university will celebrate 61 years of diversity and inclusion. Now, Valdosta State College admitted its first two Black students on September 8, 1963. 17-year-old Junelle Thomas and 18-year-old Robert Pierce Jr. were Valdosta residents who had previously attended segregated schools and met the requirements to attend the college. While the two faced challenges, they met them with strong will and positivity by becoming a part of and changing the culture of the campus for generations to come. The university now honors September 8th as the Day of Diversity, and it's a time of unity for the entire campus.
5 professional artists have brought their celebration of diversity to downtown Thomasville through art. There are 20 hand-painted circle portraits located along Broad Street and West Jackson Street. One of the artists documented her 5-week journey painting 5 of these paintings.
The portraits that I decided to paint, they are all members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I myself am a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I wanted to educate people for the first black sorority, and I wanted to also make these people timeless.
Now, along Stevens Street, there is also a gallery wall of over 20 African Americans created by the Jack Hadley Black History Museum. The city of Thomasville also installed decorative banners throughout the Ritz Amphitheater.
Why is this newspaper in Early County got a different version of one in Calhoun County?
Still to come, conflicting reports about lynchings in Calhoun County leave possible descendants puzzled. The truth WALB was able to uncover. In December 1884, it was described in a local paper as a terrible affair. The home of Calvin Mike, a black man from Calhoun County, Georgia, went up in flames, killing his 2 young daughters and his elderly mother.
The fire was set by a mob of white men, and the reason for the arson changes with which newspaper you're reading from the time. During this Black History Month, WALB News 10's Jamie Worsley investigated what really happened to the Mike family, now memorialized as lynching victims.
Nestled between newspaper advertisements for wagons, elixirs, and remedies for moths are less than a handful of articles about the 1884 fire set at Calvin Mike's home. It killed his children and elderly mother.
The incident happened somewhere here between Williamsburg and Morgan.
Okay.
Martha Mike is from Calhoun County, Georgia, and she's a possible descendant of Calvin Mike, but had never heard his story.
Their last name is M-I-K-E as well?
M-I-K-E, no S.
Wow, okay.
Some archived newspapers reported that the mob showed up in Williamsburg to confront Calvin Mike about recent thefts in his neighborhood. Other articles don't list a reason.
Why is this newspaper in Early County got a different version of one in Calhoun County?
Calvin and his wife escaped the home and hid in a nearby marsh. Hearing no one else in the home, the mob set the house on fire. So I set out to find out what really happened that dark December night in Williamsburg. And the story that emerged came all the way from Montgomery, Alabama.
There's another report that he voted for a Republican in the election and told people about it, and that made him a target.
The Equal Justice Initiative opened the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in 2018. Lily and Emma Mike are just 2 among thousands of names memorialized there in Montgomery.
When you read about children, as in this case, being lynched, I think it just really hits home for people in a different way.
The men in the mob that burned down Calvin Mike's home were never convicted of any crime, even after he sued them.
Solicitor General Walter was taken sick and a mistrial was made. How convenient.
But not all hope for justice is lost. Lawmakers like Carl Gilliard from Georgia have proposed legislation that would create departments to investigate lynchings from the past, work with the AJI, and correct history for those who never had the press or even the truth on their side.
So many of the local papers are still in operation. There's a lot of sort of very interesting history there that could be confronted.
A situation like this, we don't want to remember that kind of stuff. But it is good to know, it is good to talk to your kids, grandkids, and tell them about their history. And not to just take a newspaper article at face value.
In Calhoun County, Jamie Worsley, WALB, your hometown news source.
Celebrating Black history can continue beyond February. When we come back, the WALB team shares what Black history means to the station and to the individual.
Well, throughout February, our news team has been celebrating Black history from across South Georgia.
So before we go, we wanted the team to get the chance to express what this month means to them in their own words.
At WALB, we celebrate Black history because without our ancestors, we wouldn't be standing here today.
Black History Month is about learning the untold stories of our community and our country.
Black History Month is a time we honor African Americans who paved the way for our future.
Black History Month means to me a time of reflection and appreciation for everyone that came before us.
Being more in tune with my culture and being more in tune with my family.
Untold stories by those who helped shape Southwest Georgia.
Black history probably means more to me this year because of recent efforts to erase or not share the history that has actually made our country what it is. The story of the United States could not be told without the stories of Black history.
I found a newfound appreciation for Black history and Black History Month. It's celebrating a time and a culture that's rich with music, with food, with dance, and so much more. And so we just want to again wish you a happy Black History Month here from WALB.